Hello, everyone, and thank you for listening. We're the Varsity Voices. Find us, listen to us, subscribe and like us, follow us, whatever it might be at wherever you get your podcasts. And today we are, relatively new episode, Dan, in our quick hits episodes, but I think it's fast, quickly becoming one of the favorites for us and for our listeners as well.
Yeah, the quick topics, Joe. I think people like to hear our opinion. They love to hear our opinion and then move on. Yeah.
Are you sure about that?
Yeah,
you
probably
sure
they'd
love
doing the
to?
sound effects before you are. Yeah, blah blah blah
blah blah blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But again, just to remind people, our quick hits episodes, we cover 6 topics. We try and limit each topic to a total of 4 minutes, our discussion, and we give you our expert opinions because we are experts,
Yes.
right?
Just ask us. Yes.
Just ask us and feel free to weigh in. You can comment, our listeners, you can comment, and you can send us messages on social media. We're out there. You can find us on X, on Instagram, other places as well. Feel free to weigh in if there's something we say or do that you're a fan of or you're not a fan of.
Only the good ones. No, any search Varsity Voices on social media, you'll find us at some point. And our awesome logo.
Yeah. All right. So let's get started here, Dan. And we've, like I said, we've got 6 topics to cover. The first one is what I'm calling inspired scheduling. And the reason this popped up for me was some of the schedules for some of the teams, Chicago Catholic League teams, are starting to come out for next year, for 2025. And I've looked at some of those and they're fine, right? They're good. It's all the same teams. But as I was looking through some of those, I thought, why not do something a little more interesting? Why not create some kind of yearly or annual thing where the first game of the year, you're playing some team that's in your same area and you call it a particular bowl game, right? And you kind of get the fans involved. You build the excitement. Think about, for example, like Bennett is, they're located in Lisle, Illinois. You could do some kind of hometown thing where Bennett plays Lisle High School the first game of the year, and it's kind of a hometown wars or hometown battle. Or the Arboretum Bowl, like you mentioned, and pick a team that's within that area that maybe you don't play all that often or ever, and just make it a little bit more interesting. I just feel like the schedule comes out, you look at some of the early games, you see, okay, each of these teams are scheduling somebody that they're hoping that they get that first win or two. I'd like to see something a little more inspired, Dan.
I won't have any that are off the top of my head, but think of how we like the games that have a little bit of that feel early in the year, whether it's Marist Brother Rice or whether it's Notre Dame St. Pat's. That's exciting. And Bennett has played Naperville North, and but I would like to see Montini Naz. It's kind of close, and or Naz LT or Bennett's played Naperville North, like I said, and so. Joe, it goes back to the bigger picture of the playoff seeding. So one topic takes us into another, as always, because if you reduce the number of wins, add playoff teams where that number of victories needed goes down, I think you see a lot more of this. I think you'd see, that some of these schools, would go ahead and schedule that NAS and LT, which would be a great game to see.
That would be. Yeah. I mean, that's the exact thing I was talking about, Dan.
Yeah,
something like that.
It would be newsworthy,
Yes.
Yeah, all those would be really cool. And if we went school by school, the buzzer would go off really quickly. But the impact of that, just from an interest standpoint, would be awesome.
Yeah, it would be. So, I don't know. Do you think anybody will ever look at something like that. But I do agree with you, Dan, that if more teams were in the playoffs,
blah 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 blah
all
blah.
right. I think you said it.
Yes.
I think people got the gist of it, but I'm with you on that. Okay, all right, good. So, tell me, Dan, who your surprise team might be next year in the Chicago Catholic League. I know this year you could probably say DePaul Prep was a surprise, right? I mean, we thought they were going to be better, obviously, but to get to the point they did this past year was a bit of a surprise. I don't know. Do you see any other teams next year that maybe aren't quite on the radar or a little bit below the radar that might surprise you a bit?
The team that jumps out to me is St. Pat's, Joe. So only because we felt like they were coming around at the end of the year, they found an identity. And the big thing for me is that how many returners they have. There's some new coaches out there with really good teams, and that's going to be exciting. Obviously, the mainstays are going to be the mainstays for the most part, but I think St. Pat's is someone that could really make a leap. And I think they're going to be a problem for people because they just return so much on the lines. And that's how I would like to build the team from the lines out. And I think they're set there. I think they started to find an identity. I think Coach Zbikowski will lean into that identity a little bit.
Yeah.
Just guessing. But they would be my pick.
All right. Yeah, good pick. They were somebody I was considering, and I'm not sure, you tell me this, but my team that kept kind of popping up to the top of my list as I looked at this was Marmion. And I'm not sure how much of a surprise it would be because they did take a little bit of a step last year. But I think they can be sneaky good again and surprise some people next year and maybe get even further than they were able to this year. I think they've got, when you look at who you have returning, they've lost some good players, but a lot of times when you look at who you have returning, you're looking at the quarterback position. They've got a young one there, and Roy Magana, and in the short time or some of the snippets that he was able to play last year, he showed a lot of promise. If you've got that kind of player in place and you've got some others that are coming up that you could surround him with, I think Marmion might surprise some people next year.
Yeah, I mean, they did win the division. So when you talk about surprise, you're saying advance, maybe knock off someone in a higher division or larger division. So I get it, and I think that could be the case too. They'll be interesting to see. I think Coach Gare is pretty excited about the future.
Yeah, I think he is too. So that's good. All right. So one of the things I wanted to talk
under the ding.
We did get under the ding just by about 6 seconds, I think,
right.
here.
Wow,
yeah.
That's good. Okay.
So I didn't have to ding you. How about that?
Perfect.
All right. So one of the things which I find extremely interesting, and this is something that's evolving over the course of, I see it more this year than, other years, obviously, but it's really because of the influence of the college transfer portal and what effect that might be having on the recruitment of high school seniors to especially some of the more established or bigger programs within college. I think what you're seeing here, the effect is that a lot of the bigger institutions or bigger colleges are focusing probably 75% of their efforts on the transfer portal versus, reaching out, recruiting some of the high school kids and, bringing them into the program. I think, because of it's kind of the experience, and some of the kids that are in the transfer portal. You've got a body of work there at the college level. I just see more and more programs focusing there versus doing the typical kind of recruiting of high school athletes. So I think it's made a difference in where some of the kids are going or committing to. There, a lot of them, unless you're at that very elite level, are going to maybe some colleges, universities that are a little bit smaller, a little bit less. Less stature, I guess.
Lower profile.
Yeah. Lower profile. I don't know. What do you think, Gary? Do you think that's probably something that's increasing or going to go on here?
I think there's going to be some unintended consequences, and we may touch on this in a future topic here. But I do think that if you can fill a lot of your needs, that you see in the offseason with transfers, it changes your recruiting needs on the high school level. And so that might be where you see, a team takes way more at a certain position than they typicically do. And that all filters down, right? From power forward to the rest of the FBS to FCS. And so there's a filter effect, I think, that happens, that I think is maybe what you're talking about, where you are going to see, superstars are going to be superstars, and they're going to go to the biggest schools, and they want them in there. But if you're on that second tier,
that's a good one, isn't it?
Ooh, that's an attention getter.
Yeah, but I think you're 100% right, Dan. Even if you didn't get a chance to finish your thought.
That's all right. I think people get it.
Yeah, I do too.
Know what we're talking about. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell me, Dan, one of the things that we've seen, and we've talked to several people in high up positions, is they're really struggling around getting officials for, not just football, but for a lot of the different sports within high school sports. And what do you think the lack of them being able to get officials is? How do you think the effect of that might be on the particular games and the actual, when you get into the details, the officiating of those games?
Oh, I think it's huge. I was very enthused by hearing Dr. Niehoff say that she thought maybe they had bottomed out and it was coming back a little bit, but it can't come back soon enough. And we've said it. If we said it once, we've said it 100 times. Said it early on in the podcast. If you like high school football and you are able-bodied, you should do. This is a way to get involved. I know you kicked it around years ago, Joe.
I did.
Official. You were perfect for it. It's like, and I think an overlooked area. There, obviously, you want young people. That'd be great. People who are kind of looking for something different to do and make some extra money. But I also think there's a spot for those dads and moms who have recently had kids graduate, and maybe they're going on and they still have this feeling that, God, I really miss that Friday night. They're still able-bodied. They can get around. They know the game. They love the game. I think there's an area, and the effect, Joe, is that you get worse officiating, because you have to double up. You have to have people that you would normally assign to maybe lower level games now doing varsity games, and maybe they hadn't done that before. So I think it is exactly what you would expect, that the level and what you see, the level of officiating goes down. And whether it's the flow of the game, some of the calls, however it turns out, you definitely see that. And there is an effect on a lack of officials. And so if you can hear this and do it, go ahead and sign up. You should sign up if you can run. I can't run anymore, so I would do it. But,
it doesn't seem to make a difference. Some of the officials I see, Dan, if you can limp and get yourself down in somewhat of a position. All right. But actually, I say that, and I do think that's part of that. That's a bit of an issue. But I think the bigger issue here, and this is backed up by data, is, there's an increase in I'll call it the unsportsmanlike behavior on behalf of coaches, players, spectators. I think some of the officials say, you know what, I am not going to put up with all that grief, for my $45 that I'm getting paid for this game. I'm not going to get threatened, physically threatened, or whatever it might be. So I think you need to crack down on that. And I'm not sure how you do that. Because the way things have gone in high school sports and how passionate people get about it, and that pours over into the games, and I think it affects the officials.
Yeah, there's a reason they sprint off the field after the game. In under the bomb.
All right, there you go. Okay, so one of the things I was looking at, and this is really kind of cool for me, and you probably know this about me, but I was looking at what is some of the future technology which is going to be involved in high school sports. And because everything is evolving from a technology standpoint, and we've seen some of the thing that comes to mind is, like, for example, Huddle, right? Some of the things Huddle is doing around games and data and analytics, and allowing coaches to record everything and go back and review it. I mean, I feel like that was a big step forward for high schools. But now when you look at some of the things that are going on, that's almost like the base. If you're not doing that, it's a bare minimum. You're right. So I just think the way this is headed, with artificial intelligence as well, affecting everything in our lives, it's going to affect football and the technology in football. But I think you're going to see some wearable technology as far as biometric sensors and those kinds of things to monitor players and their health condition while they're playing. Training as well. All of those things. Artificial intelligence, using it in coaching and scouting. You and I have talked about using it as far as to analyze some of the broadcasts, going to get that immediate, up-to-date statistics and data. The other thing is the virtual reality training, which I think is so cool, right? Yeah. So there's just all these things which are just right on the cusp, and it's going to be interesting to watch what happens probably within the next 5 years in regards to some of these more advanced technologies and how they're going to be applied to high school.
Yeah, Joe, the only thing I'll say, I'm going to share a story from our coach, Coach Cedarblad, and had to play. We used to open up with Geneseo way back in the day. And what that meant was, if you wanted to trade film, you had to get when I was in school, VHS, or before that, reel to reel. So the cans of film. And he used to talk about, he would have to send, the freshman coaches would be responsible for film exchange. So they would work out a time with the Geneseo coaches, which is about 3.5 hours from Bennett, let's say 3 hours probably.
Yeah.
And you would pick a place to meet in the middle just to exchange film, shake hands, get in the car, and drive back. And also
was it under the cover of darkness as well?
It was early in the morning, so you could prep. But also sending those freshman coaches, which I know some coaches do, send their staff to watch a game live. They feel like they get a better feel for it, which I totally get. But you're, as a freshman coach or a lower level coach, if part of your responsibility was you've got to drive to, we're playing Edwardsville next Friday. So this Friday night, I want you to drive to Edwardsville, and watch the varsity game, film it with a camera. Don't take your life into your hands so people don't steal it. What's a good story? No, the story was done. So
it was done. Yeah, you were kind of adding to it and stuff as you went along, which I appreciate.
Was really about to start. So,
I really appreciate the embellishment, but we're on a tight schedule here, Dan.
Right. Yes.
All right. So wow, we're to our last topic. How about that?
That's fast.
It is fast. And, but that's the way we are, right?
Yeah.
We try and keep these fast. We never go over 30 minutes.
Yeah, right.
Right. But this is something else which kind of goes back to one of our earlier topics and college transfer portal and the effect that's happening or having on high school recruiting. But this one is kind of the flip side of that, and it's called the college stepping stones. And this really kind of popped into my head when I was looking at where some of the kids have committed, some of the players have committed, and where they're going. And I was wondering if they're now viewing it, unless they're going to a top-notch program right away, they're now viewing their college choice, at least their initial choice as to where they're going to sign and where they're going to go, as a possible stepping stone to another program down the line, knowing that they will have the ability to transfer at some point, and maybe there's a little money involved. If they play well at wherever they're going initially as a freshman, are they going to be able to bump up to the next level? All those kinds of things, junior college as well, which you and I have talked about. Is that a possible stepping stone? And, as far as there's some rulings out there now where if you go to junior college, it's not going to count against your eligibility for NCAA. So you still get your 4 years. I mean, there's so many things that kind of play into this and that are still playing out. But I do feel like, one of the things forefront or in the minds of some of the players and where they're going and where they're committing to, they may be looking at that as just a stepping stone to something else or something bigger.
Well, it's funny that you say that, Joe, because that was one of the complaints about coaches and kind of what drove a lot of the discussion around transfer portal and kids being able to go from one school to another, because a coach can use a school as a stepping stone, and
right.
So
yeah.
that's that term that you use, I think it's spot on. It's the most frustrating thing to me about the transfer portal is feeling like a school that you root for, whatever, maybe attended, where is now, a minor league team for a higher profile school. And if you have a player that's young and has a good year, you've got to re-recruit them all over again because they are going to look for the bigger and better deal. And it's, I don't know how you stop that, but it's my least favorite thing. I guess you can replace it. I guess, you've talked about, put it on the coaches. So you're responsible for making that program attractive enough that you become a destination rather than a stepping stone. And,
right.
But man, easier said than done. And I think absolutely. I think junior colleges are going to be used to stash players. If they can retain their eligibility, I absolutely would look at the junior college route. If my school would take junior college players, not every school does. But I think they should now, but I think you're going to see a lot of that stepping stone mentality come out. I don't know if anyone will ever say that. You'll
except for me.
See it. Yeah. yeah. No, from a player that chooses it, say like, well, yeah, I'm planning on going here for a year and then I'm going to transfer here, and yeah, that sort of, you won't ever get that story maybe years after they're done. But it's something that has to be considered, when schools on the same level are considered stepping stones for players.
Yeah, and it really makes it tough, like you mentioned, on the coaches, right? Because, if you're not one of the schools that has a ton of money from an NIL standpoint, your players are going to be poached year in and year out. Your best players, unfortunately. Right. Even if you're a step down program, your best players are going to get poached by the big programs. So
yeah, it filters down. So it's going to go down from, from Division 3. We'll take the hits to go to Division 2, which will take the hits. I'm sorry, I'm using old terminology, to go to Division 1.
Yep.
And, and so on and so forth. And then within that Division 1, so the haves are going to take from the have-nots. And boy, you get a school that has a player or two that really changed the direction of their program, and boom, he's gone.
Yeah,
that's tough.
It is tough.
Yeah. Blah, 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 blah,
there we
blah.
go. All right. So that's our quick hits, Dan. That's our 6 topics. Yeah. We were quick, exactly the way we said we wanted to be. And I think we provided some really good information, especially for our listeners. If you want to hear more about any of these topics, let it be known by commenting, sending us a message, whatever it might be, on social media, or commenting on the podcast, wherever you're listening from. But as always, we appreciate you listening. And you've got something?
I was going to say, should we give our email address out?
Sure. Give yours.
All right. I will give mine.
Yes, there you go.
I got to spell our last name then.
So that's the only problem.
So it's D Frevaletti at thevarsityvoices.com.
Yeah.
So, yep.
We may have to think about shortening those.
Yeah, maybe Frevs.
Just D Frevs.
Yeah, that's easy enough, right?
All right. No, but that's not where we wanted to send it to. So D Frevaletti at thevarsityvoices.com.
Yep.
Or J Frevaletti at
Figure
thevarsityvoices.com.
yours out.
Yes, there's not much stealthiness to our email names. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, we would love to hear from people. So even on some of the things that we've covered, some of the topics we've covered, or if there are some that you've got in mind that you would love to hear our opinion on, or us talk about, or do an episode about, make sure you send that to us as well. But overall, we appreciate you listening, and we will look forward to talking with you soon.